Hi and welcome to this video. My name is Yannis and this is going to be all about making basic sounds with the Perfourmer. So if you're a beginner or you need some basic introduction on how to create your first sounds, this is going to be great for you. It's also the start of a 5-part video series about making music with the Perfourmer, covering sound design and also how to make full tracks, because that's what I just did and turned into a whole album that I released today, which is called Morning Cycles, and it's basically 5 tracks, or actually if you buy it on Bandcamp, 10 tracks of music made entirely with the Perfourmer and also recorded live, so there's no overdubbing or this kind of stuff. All you hear is basically live arrangements without much overthinking. It was a lot of fun, and for me, using the Perfourmer has some almost therapeutic touch, and it just sounds so beautiful and it's so inspiring to create music with it. And through this video series, I hope I can share a little of that with you. So one invitation to check it out and listen to it. The link is down below in the description. And here you can see the basic setup. So for the album, I actually sequenced everything with Ableton Live because I didn't have the Syntect yet. Now with the Syntect, it's nice because for those videos, I can actually use this as a sequencer instead of using Ableton for recording the sound and also sequencing. And it's just a little more relaxing to not do everything inside Ableton Live. So it works with whatever you use, and it's just important that you send MIDI out of either your interface, you use some adapter, or out of your sequencer into the MIDI in of the Perfourmer, and then it depends on the MIDI channel. So you can see, for example, that I have on track 1 a MIDI track that sends to channel 1, and then on the Perfourmer you need to click MIDI channel, and if you want to send stuff to MIDI channel 1, you need to select the synthesizer that needs to receive that MIDI on that channel, in this case the first one. I want to start with a basic setting that you can see as a starting point that always sounds kind of good, because during some one-on-ones that people sometimes book me for, and I do this in case you're interested, you can just contact me via email, I realized that they struggle to find a good basic sound because maybe they're a bit overwhelmed with all the different knobs, although it's like 4 times the same knobs. Or it's just very easy to overlook a modulation, although there aren't so many. But that's why I want to first show you this setting, or basically also like share a checklist with you with potential things that can make the sound a little weird, or that can make you wonder, like, why does it sound so weird? As some example, I completely randomized the first oscillator, so I just randomly turned some knobs, and right now it sounds like this. And while a part of me kind of enjoys this diabolic character of sequences like that, let's actually bring this more into perspective or place. And first of all, it's a good idea to check all the modulations. So you can see, for example, the LFO intensity here is turned to the left, which means that the pitch is modulated, and this doesn't happen per scale or with some sort of quantization, so it's always going to sound quite crazy. So let's turn this to the middle position. And also here you see that the LFO is modulating the filter cutoff, so you also turn this all the way to the left. So with this knob it has to be in the middle for the neutral setting, and with this knob it has to be on the left side for a neutral setting. Also, let's reduce the resonance for now. This knob adds some pitch envelope, which is great for drum sounds, but which can also easily make your sequence sound out of tune. So let's turn this one to the middle position as well. It actually locks nicely, so you're really sure that it's on some neutral setting. Also, the glide, let's get rid of it right now. And those were actually the controls for the amount of modulation through LFOs, or through the one LFO. Now let's also bring the attack all the way to the left, so the sound is there right away, and have some mild decay. Let's not use sustain for now and have some medium release setting. And now it should sound way better already. And it really does. I just reduced the cutoff a little because it was very bright, and it still sounds kind of in tune, but that's another really important thing, that you need to use a tuner to make sure that your synthesizer is in tune. So I, for example, in Ableton use the tuner plugin, and you can simply play the sound and check if it's in tune. And otherwise move this knob a little. And this is a pretty solid sound for getting started. There are a few other things that can confuse you sometimes. So for example, the VCA control needs to be on EG. I mean, it still works on the gate mode, but then you don't use the envelope. It's just some on-off kind of sound. And if it's on, you just get sound all the time, which is sometimes nice if you're looking for some cool sounds or just want to have this ongoing sound without any envelope. But yeah, if you wonder why is there sound all the time, even if I don't play something, just check this knob. And also make sure that on the octave setting, you're using one of the upper 4 registers, because high and low are basically setting one fixed pitch. So even if you send in a sequence, you only hear one pitch that you can change with the tuning knob. And I'm going to show you some example about how you can use it when we're designing some drum sounds. And this setting is really inviting for just starting a sequence and playing a little around with the parameters, and that's what I want to do now. So it sounds really great to increase the release, for example. Or to make it shorter for a bouncy sound. I also like to play with the attack. Get this more muffled sound, or you increase the cutoff again. But it's a bit softer. It's also great to add some LFO that slightly modulates the filter cutoff. And also you can consider adding a tiny modulation of the pitch with the LFO, adding some sort of vibrato. And also glide is super fun. If you have a sound like this. Usually increasing the EG intensity makes it way more punchy, and I'm going to change this to a short envelope. So here you get a very snappy sound, while a setting like this is way softer. So you see, you don't need much for creating some enjoyable sound. This is just one oscillator and a very basic setting, but it's really enjoyable to listen to it, especially if you start moving the filter cutoff or playing with the envelope. And for this setting, I used the sawtooth wave because in my opinion, that's the best one for creating this warm synthesizer, analog touch sound. But also square waves are interesting. They sound a little more present and also a little more aggressive, I would say. Let's check it out. I also feel like they sound a bit more gimmicky. Let's actually get rid of the glide. But it's a very present sound. And it also gets fun if you add some pulse width modulation, because turning this knob to the right side only works with the square waves. You get a very nice type of distortion. Especially on faster tempos. I mean, it also gets out of tune, but it's a great sound. So this was just about using one oscillator, but you can also bring in the other ones. So you can see that I copied the setting of oscillator 1 to oscillator 2 and oscillator 3, because those two I want to use and bring in, and you need to make sure that they are on the same MIDI channel. So right now, I actually changed this already, but in case it looks like this, you need to make sure that on MIDI channel number 1, all those 3 or 2 or however many you want to use receive the MIDI. A great sound you can create like this is some 2 or 3 oscillator dark bass, and that's why I also created some sequence that is a little slower, so we have fewer notes. It sounds like this. And we just start with one oscillator, and then we bring in the second one. And then you can slightly detune it for getting this super great sound effect. and eventually tune it 1 octave lower. Ooh. Let's see what we can do with the third oscillator. Kind of nice. And it's super fun to create sounds like this, but still you need to make many adjustments because you can't control the cutoff frequency for all synthesizers or the envelope for all synthesizers. You need to stick to one setting or actually do it for all the different synthesizers. And if you do this in real time, it can get confusing real quick, which is also why for those types of sounds, I made some sample library or actually some sample pack. You can also check it out. I'm going to link it down below in the description. It contains lots of samples that have been made with the Vermona Perfourmer, and it's just more easy to use them in this way, or you actually add some additional filter that you can use for controlling the sound globally. I also want to share with you how you can create drum sounds, because this is also super fun and actually simple. And for that, I'm going to program one sequence with basically quarter notes. So we just use some 4 on the floor kick drum and make sure that only channel 1 receives the MIDI. And now we change to a sine wave and we use the low setting, actually the high setting, for finding a cool pitch. Because for drum sounds, I mean, if you make some long 808s, you need to watch out the tuning, because otherwise you can actually be a bit more free in kind of checking where the sound sounds great. And here, what you need is the pitch envelope, the EG intensity in the first pitch tuning section. And you see that depending on where you put the tuning, you get all sorts of different drums. And decay and release increase the time for the bending. Oh, and actually I filtered out too much. That sounds pretty cool. And using sine waves is the most simple concept for making kick drums, but you can also try using the square wave. It sounds incredibly dark and aggressive. I actually really like it, but it's a very particular sound. Actually, I like this sort of aggressive sound, so let's keep it this way and move on to the snare drum. And for the snare, we need 2 layers, or actually 2 oscillators, because we need a tone and a noise. So a sound for a tone and a sound for a noise. And here on the Syntect, I actually set up track 4, sending to channel 2. So let's make sure that those 2 synthesizers receive MIDI on channel 2. Let's actually mute the kick drum for now, so we can only listen to the snare. And I'm going to just program some notes on 2 and 4, starting with 1 oscillator. And again, we just go to the high setting and find a pitch where we like it. Let's already bring in the noise. So the noise is this kind of symbol here. Maybe we make sure the envelope is kind of the same. but we need way more high frequencies. It's a quite low snare drum, but I like it. Actually, let's tune it a little higher. So together with the kick drum, we get this type of beat. And I feel like drum sounds being made with the Performer have this merciless touch. They don't sound so sensitive. I mean, maybe you can make them sound this way, but I feel like the aggression is kind of charismatic and I like it a lot. So if you have the Performer and feel like you want to have some drum samples that really bang or are really aggressive, I think it's a great idea to try what you can do with it. And you can also create individual samples with more layers than just one or two. But this is just some example for turning it into a drum machine, because we still have one oscillator left. So we can also add some noise hi-hat. So let me quickly set this up. So the hi-hat track is now sending on channel 3. So we make sure that the last oscillator receives on channel 3. I already switched this to noise setting. Also, it's a good idea to make the envelope really short because it's some sort of hi-hat feeling. So now we get it here. Actually, let's make it like this. We'll tweak it in a second. But for the sequence, let's actually compose basically 16th notes. We're going to modify it a little. Actually, I'm going to use some randomization here. So if we play it. Oh. We get this kind of vibe, which is a bit funny. Actually, it could be a bit faster, I think. So I hope you enjoy those first sounds. I think they are a great starting point, but if you also want to get deeper into making sounds with the Performer, there's going to be some advanced sound design techniques video. If you watch in real time, it will be released tomorrow, and otherwise you can find it here. And again, warm invitation to listen to Morning Cycles. I'm going to link it down below in the description. Also, if you like this video series, you can actually consider buying it on Bandcamp and maybe donating a little, saying thank you. Also on Bandcamp, you actually get twice as many tracks as if you listen to it on Spotify, Tidal, or wherever. So that's a nice little bonus. And apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create and hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye.